الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue with the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. And last time we talked about the hadith about forbidding the evil and enjoining the good. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll have a separate session explaining more of this hadith and giving some practical examples as as mentioned. But we'll have it as a separate session, inshallah ta'ala. But we'll go to the next hadith, inshallah ta'ala. As it's meant by this book is to be aware of the principles of this deen. The purpose of studying these 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah, as the ulama mentioned, is like this is the first book that they recommend when it comes to the subject of the hadith. To study them, to memorize them, to be brief in knowing them in general, because many things are built in matters of knowledge on these hadith. So this is the way of studying or talab al-ilm, or studying knowledge, is to basically go through the entire subject every time you study a book, but in more details. So if a person is studying Aqidah and he studies the 6 pillars of Al-Iman, to get them all in brief, in general, and then go over the 6 pillars of Al-Iman again with more details, and so on. Same thing with the tafsir of the Quran. It's better that a person starts with a tafsir that is brief so that he can cover the entire Quran, and then after that to go more in details. Life is short, and it's important to be able to go in the specific levels or the specific manner that the ulama rahimahullah had recommended. And this is all about the necessary knowledge, of course. Otherwise, whoever seriously wants to seek the knowledge, it's the route to be taken by those who are learning the language and so on. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who learn the deen of Allah, to make us benefit and to increase our fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we are living at times of fitan, and it's very important to seek steadfastness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the means to do that is to get to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, رَضِيتُ اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. This deen has been completed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed His favor upon us, and He's pleased subhanahu wa ta'ala with the deen of Islam as our religion. So this deen is about ilm, and then once a person knows, he submits himself, and not for us to change the deen to please others or to please ourselves and things like this. The pleasure of the believers is to get to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, to be patient in applying the orders of Allah. This hadith number 35, is an important hadith, has many rulings in it and great benefits to attain a very noble objective, as we would see from the hadith, and in the subject of brotherhood in the deen of Allah. The al-ukhuwa, or brotherhood in the deen of Allah, it's we don't want it to be just a slogan or a nice words to be mentioned, but it becomes also always in a category of ideal situation that is a dream to achieve, and that has no reality to it. This has to be physically applied in the life of the believers. And if a person doesn't find others applying it, he will be asked about it in the Day of Judgment on his own. So it's not a two-way type of thing that a person would reward others, or he's kind to those who are kind to him. He applies the rights of brotherhood to those who apply it and those who acknowledge it. No, he has to do it whether people are doing the same or treating him with ignorance. So this is a great hadith, and Hajar rahimahullah, he said that about this hadith before I mention it. It's a hadith kathirul fawaid. It has great benefits, many benefits, and it's when you reflect upon it, as he said, it attains in it all of the أحكام of الإسلام منطوقا ومفهوما. He said بل هو عند تأمل معناه وفهم مغزاه حاول لجميع أحكام الإسلام منطوقا ومفهوما. If you reflect upon the meanings of it and you know the objective of this hadith, it has in it all the different rulings of Islam. منطوقا in منطوق, that means it's in speech, and مفهوما in understanding or indirectly, directly or indirectly. ومشتمل على جميع الآداب أيضا إيمان on all the different manners. So many of the ulama talked about the virtue of this hadith. So let's first see the hadith. It says عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تحاسدوا ولا تناجشوا ولا تباغضوا ولا تدابروا ولا يبع بعضكم على بيع بعض وكونوا عباد الله إخوانا المسلم أخو المسلم لا يظلم ولا يخذل ولا يكذب ولا يحقر التقوى ها هنا ويشير إلى صدره 3 مرات بحسب امرئ من الشر أن يحقر أخاه المسلم كل المسلم على المسلم حرام دمه وماله وعرضه رواه مسلم. This hadith needs a series really to explain it and to go through the many different rulings and details, and it's a subject in many chapters of knowledge, whether it's matters of adab, manners, or matters of fiqh, or different subjects. Actually the hadith comes under. So first of all, the hadith, as in another narration, this hadith is reported by Imam Muslim, and in another narration it reported by Abu Dawood and others, that it shows that this hadith has a reason why the Prophet ﷺ said it, and this narration is from another Sahabi, Suwaid ibn Hanzala. He said, we went out nuridu Rasulullah ﷺ, that they were seeking the Prophet ﷺ to go to him, and they had with them Wa'il ibn Hujr and some enemies. They took him. So he said some of the people, they were at matter of unease to swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lying. So they were going to the Prophet ﷺ, and the enemies, they took one of the companions as a captive, or they caught him. So he said, Suwaid ibn Hanzala, وَحَلِفْتُ أَنَّهُ أَخِي. So Suwaid, he swore by Allah that he is his brother. So they set him free. So he swore by Allah, basically lying, that he is his brother. So he said, we went to the Prophet ﷺ, and he informed the Prophet ﷺ that the people, they did not lie, because this is the way that he would be freed. If someone would swear that he is their brother, they would let him free. So some of the people, they felt unease because they're going to swear by Allah lying, which is one of the destructive sins. And he said, but I swear by Allah that he is my brother. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, صدقت المسلم وأخو المسلم. He said, you are truthful. The Muslim is the brother of a Muslim. So in another narration, actually, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, كنت أبرهم وأصدقهم. You were the most righteous and the most truthful among them. صدقت المسلم وأخو المسلم. You are right, you are truthful. The Muslim is the brother of a Muslim. So this is why the hadith has been narrated. The words of the hadith is لا تحاسد. لا تحاسد. And لا تحاسد, that means do not envy one another. And as we know, the definition of al-hasad is to wish that the ni'mah is taken away from others, whether for the person to have the like of it or whether not to have it. Just the fact that he would wish that someone would lose a favor of Allah that he has upon him, that's hasad. Anything, whether it's a matter of deen, whether it's a matter of dunya. So to wish that it's not there for that brother, this is considered to be hasad. And even as Sheikh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah, when he defined al-hasad, He said, كراهة ما أنعم الله به على الغير وإن لم يتمنى الزوال. To hate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed a favor upon someone else, even if you don't wish that he loses it. Just to hate that he has been given something, that by itself is hasad. And some said if he hates it, that means it's by necessity. He would want to have it removed from him. He wished that that person doesn't have it. So that means a person has to push away that feeling if he gets to him. And it's a detailed subject, and it's a person has to push that away, and it's a normal thing that sometimes it happens. Human beings, they have this in them if they don't purify their hearts from such a thing, if their hearts are attached to this world, and this is their concern, and this is their happiness and sadness is about this life, and the hearts are not attached to the hereafter, they don't like anybody to be ahead of them or above them or more superior to them, especially those who are close. And al-hasad usually comes with those who are close, those who a person interacts with, because he feels or he sees that he could have what they have. So he would wish that they lose it, for example, and that's haram. The other types which is permissible is to wish that a person would have the like of what people have without them losing it, without him hating that they have it. That's only permissible in matters of ilm, of knowledge of the deen, and matters of wealth that is used for the sake of Allah, for the obedience of Allah. So anything else that has to be pushed away from one's heart, and a person should always look at the end of things and the hereafter, and how that these favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life, that it's really a trial, and it's not necessarily a favor in the absolute sense, unless it helps the person to be more obedient to Allah and among those who seek the pleasure of Allah. So this is briefly لا تحسدوا ولا تناجشوا. Do not make najash. And a najash is when someone increase the price of a good or something to harm another person or to benefit himself, or both. Meaning, if someone is presenting a good, like a car, for example. So someone comes, whether it's in an auction or in a different setup. Usually it's mentioned in an auction. Usually people, or the very first example that people mention with najash is with regards to auction. When someone is, say for example, auction for a car, and there's someone that is increasing the price without the intention to buy. He's just increasing the price to harm someone or to benefit himself, whether it's by the agreement with the owner or something else, or can be without an auction. A person has something that he has presented for sale. So someone comes and he says, "I'll take it for 1,000." So someone else comes and he says, "I'll take it for 2,000." And he just wants to increase the price to harm that person. This is not permissible. But if someone else comes and he asks for it and increase the price, this comes into the sentence that's still not yet in the hadith. But an-najash, that specific word an-najash, is to increase the price of something to harm someone else, especially in the context of an auction. So that since there is harm here, then this is haram for a person to do that. وَلَا تَبَاغَضُوا. Do not hate one another. لَا تَبَاغَضُوا. And the word تَبَاغَضُوا, تَنَاجَشُوا, that wazn of the fi'l, تَفَعَلُوا, that means do not take the means that would get you to that state. So it's not just about do not hate one another. It also means do not do the things that would lead for you to hate one another. And don't say, no, that's not going to happen. So don't do the things that would make you hate one another. And that's why also that requires knowledge, and also to know the urf and the norm of the people. And this is a concern that a Muslim should have. And that's why when very simple disputes that Muslims would have, this is something that should be avoided, because these types of things can lead to a tabaghut, can lead to hatred towards one another. So do not take the means even that would make a person or people hate one another. Uh, and once, say for example, if it happened, if a person finds that in his heart, he has to push that away from his heart. He has to push that away from his heart, because the Prophet ﷺ said, وَلَا تَبَاغَضُوا. And a person would say, but there is something with regards to the deen. Aren't we supposed to love for the sake of Allah and hate for the sake of Allah? And in the same heart, a person can have both love and hate towards someone based on the obedience or the disobedience of Allah, based on the bid'ah innovations or being upon the sunnah and so on. This is things for the sake of Allah is different. Here, this is in the context of dunya. Matters of dunya, matters of materialistic things, and also with matters of the deen, other things to be considered, and the concern that the person would have in his heart towards others, and to acknowledge the time and the environment that a person is in. Is it times of where ignorance are more prevailing, or it's time where knowledge is strong among the people? Is it times of fitan, or it's not time of fitan? You know, and to seek excuses for others and to educate others and to be patient with them. Many different aspects that needs to be considered, instead of rushing into learning one aspect of the religion without applying all the different means to it, or taking a meaning that the Salaf used to be upon and apply it upon people that their situation is different, or their iman is different, or the environment that they're in is different. So, but again, this also has details that needs to be mentioned. وَلَا تَبَاغَضُوا وَلَا تَدَابَرُوا وَلَا تَدَابَرُوا, which means do not, tadabur is to give your back to someone else. From a dubur is the end of things. That means whether it's physically or not physically, with the intention or with the means of being angry with each other, or in matters of dispute, to turn away from one another. You know, sometimes people would be talking and a person would arrogantly turn away, or in arguments and things of that nature. وَلَا يَبِعْ بَعْضُكُمْ عَلَى بَيْعِ بَعْضٍ وَلَا يَبِعْ بَعْضُكُمْ, and none should sell or buy on the selling of someone else, or buying of someone else. What does that mean? Similar to a tanajush or a najash, is you see someone that is purchasing or selling, for example, a car again for $1,000. So you go to you have the same good, a car, for example. So you go to the buyer or to the seller, and you would say to them, I would give it to you for the same kind and everything else, for less money, or I'll give you better than this with the same money. That's haram. That's not permissible. Or the opposite. So whether it's for the buyer or for the seller. So this is something that is not permissible, because that causes for people to be in some form of unease in their hearts. That's different than the nasiha. It's different than the nasiha that you advise a brother that he's going to purchase something that is so expensive, or it's not the price of it, or things like this. But this is something that it shows that the Muslim is that you won't do that for your brother from the same mother and father, the one that you care for so much. You won't do such a thing to him. So the same thing, the Muslim is Akhul Muslim. The Muslim is the brother of a Muslim. That's one of the things to make it easy to understand things. There's certain hadith, like for example, the Muslim Akhul Muslim. So when a person look at his own brother and how he would treat him, and this brother that he cares for and so on, he should treat others the same way that he treats his physical brother. The same with regards to anything, whether it's wealth or things of that nature. The same thing with regards to the hadith, none of you shall believe till he love for his brother what he love for himself. So this is an easy way to see whether this is something that is good or not. A person, would he love for that to happen to him? So if the transaction happens, does it invalidate it, or it's valid but with a sin? The correct opinion is that it's a valid transaction if that happens, but it's a sinful one, that a person commits a sin by doing so. Because when we say the transaction is valid, this is ahkam of the dunya, the rulings of this life. If people are in front of a judge disputing, people take from the physical means or what's apparent. The transaction happened, no problem. There's no disputes or there's no deficiencies in it or something wrong with it, but there's something else which does not negate the exact contract, but it's a sinful one. وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَكُونُوا, be, O slaves of Allah, brothers. That means you have to do something to be brothers. So it's not sufficient just to say the brother such and such or the brother this and that, but you have to do something to be brothers. To love for your brother what you love for yourself, to fulfill the rights of brotherhood sincerely from one's heart, and to seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing so. And how it's the Prophet ﷺ, he did not say وَكُونُوا إِخْوَانًا. He did not say be brothers. He said be, O slaves of Allah, brothers. Right? So it makes it easy for a person to be, for a Muslim to be a brother for another Muslim. Why? Because he said عباد Allah, slaves of Allah. You are a slave of Allah and he's a slave of Allah. Everybody's a slave of Allah, but ibadullah in the good sense. Those who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Even if that Muslim worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is sinful, or he has some issues, but he's a slave of Allah. He's a Muslim. That means he has rights. That means he's your brother. Right? So, and that's connecting this hadith to the previous one. If he's upon evil, it's part of the brotherhood that you advise him, that you have the concern towards him. Not that you start backbiting him and boycotting him and warning against him and this and that. Things has to be right, done in the right perspective of things, and not to put down or let down someone, and to have the concern towards a Muslim. And there are steps to be taken before you can even boycott him for the sake of Allah, because he's your brother, because that's what's best for him. And that's why boycotting a Muslim brother, it's for the benefit that it brings, whether it's for that person or for a community or for Muslims in large. And it's different from one situation to the other, and that's why, of course, the people of knowledge should be asked in these matters. And what can be valid in some environment might not be exactly the same as other environment, as we said. Environment of knowledge, environment of abundance of ilm, and so on is different than environment when people are weak in matters of knowledge, and fitan are so much, and so on. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Muslim wa akhul Muslim. The Muslim is the brother of a Muslim. With all of what is mentioned before, and what's coming also after the statement, this makes it also clear that a Muslim is akhul Muslim. He is a brother of a Muslim. And the brotherhood in loyalty and love and nusх and concern and having that sincerity in his heart. So therefore, as a result of that, لا يظلمه. He does not wrong him. He does not do any injustice to him, does not take any of his rights by transgressing the limits, taking any of his wealth or attacking his honor and dignity by biting and things of that nature, or deny something that it's one of his rights. In all of what is even mentioned at the end of the hadith, لا يظلمه, no dhulm whatsoever, no injustice, whether it's with word or with physical actions, with money, with anything. ولا يخذله, and he does not make khudlan to him. لا يخذله, al-khudlan is basically not to fulfill the right of someone that he would expect from you to help him or to aid him or to give him victory or to support him. Say, for example, you are in a gathering where someone is talking about that Muslim brother in a bad way. And you're sitting in the gathering and you're not saying anything, and you know that this is a lie, or this is something that is not true, right? And so he does not protect or does not defend that Muslim brother in this context. This is basically the meaning of لا يخذله. He has to aid him, he has to help him, right? And this can be in matters of dispute or other matters. So لا يخذله, someone that is expecting for his brother to support him, to help him, and he doesn't. So this can be of many different levels, of course. And that's, the same thing for a brother to his brother. If you're walking in the street and you see your brother from your mother and father is in a situation where he needs help, and you don't help him, right? What is that to be considered? And this is basically what the meaning of yakhdulu, that he is expecting from you to help him and you don't help him. And a person, he should not ask for help. A Muslim should have honor and dignity. And this comes in this is one of the difficult things to really understand, but it's not difficult, it's easy. It's for yourself, you should not seek help from others. And say even for a simple matter, if a person, for example, carrying a bag and it's heavy, you should not ask for people, unless you cannot, bear it. It's very difficult. That's a different situation. But you should try to carry your own thing, right? But a brother with you, he should insist that he would help you, and you should also try your best that he does not help you in a good way, right? But if you see that he's insisting, and he is someone that is seeking help from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, maybe you can allow him. It depends on many different things, apply here. But and the context of things is very important, of course. But this is the yakhdulu is a very general word that shows that a Muslim should not let down someone when he's expecting to be helped. And this has many different examples, of course. ولا لا يظلم ولا يخذل ولا يكذب. He does not inform him with lying. He does not lie to him, and he does not be saying that he's a liar when he's saying something of the truth, or deny what he said when it's the truth. Whether it's so both ways. ولا يحقر. He does not belittle him. احتقار is to belittle someone, to not necessarily to ridicule someone, to belittle him, that you see yourself as better than him, bigger than him, more honor than him, and that person is worth nothing because he is poor, because he's from a different race, because of a different color, because of all these silly, foolish things that human beings they fight for. When they belittle each other for things of that nature. So this is not permissible for a Muslim to do that to another Muslim. And then he said, taqwa, and this لا يحقره, within the heart, of course, and also physically by looking at him in a certain way and things like this. And that's why if a person, say for example, in Salah, or he meets someone, and that person is wearing, not very nice clothes, or he looks like he's poor, whatever, person has to be careful that it does not come into his heart that he's better than him. He has to push that away from his heart. He has to do something to push that away from his heart. And again, the way to purify ourselves is when the criteria of judging every matter is with the deen of Islam, with matters of the hereafter. The things that would matter in the hereafter, this is what really matters. And the things that does not matter in the hereafter, this is also should not be of any concern to a Muslim. And even matters of sins. If a person sees a sinful person, he should not think that he's better than him, because al-amal bil-khawatim, matters are by the ending of it. Who knows who's going to have what and who's going to change to be what. But rather he should be grateful to Allah that he's not upon the same sin or upon that bid'ah and so on. He should be grateful to Allah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them from this, and to have the concern towards that person, and to take the means of precaution, and to stay away. Depends on also the person, whether he's able to advise or not. So many things also apply here that requires knowledge for a person before he would apply that. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, "At-taqwa huna." The taqwa is right here. And he pointed at his chest 3 times. So it's in the heart, not in the tongue or the physical actions. But someone would say, but that means we can say whatever we want and we can do whatever we want as long as the taqwa is in the heart and it's hidden. Of course not. The tongue and the actions, they follow what's in the heart. So if there's taqwa in the heart, the tongue will speak accordingly, and the physical body will act according to the taqwa of the heart. But if there's no taqwa in the heart, a person can lie. So a person can pretend with his speech that he's among the people of taqwa. He can do the actions physically like the hypocrites, right? So the taqwa huna it is not as some people might understand it, as long as I have taqwa in my heart, which is, what is this taqwa in the heart? That makes a person lies, that makes a person commit sins openly. That's not taqwa. That he has, we know then for sure that in his heart he has weakness in his taqwa, if he shows evil. But if he shows good, we say we hope, we ask Allah. نحسبه كذلك, we think that he is good. So taqwa huna, and the Prophet ﷺ pointed at his sadr, at his heart, at his chest, 3 times. 3 times what? Why? To make it clear. Ta'keed. To make ta'keed and to stress the matter, then that the heart is the place of the taqwa, and that's what is, a person is exposed, what's in his heart is exposed on the Day of Judgment. This is what benefits the person at the last moments of his life, what's in his heart. And a person should not be ignorant or forgetful of what's in his heart, and he should not be deceived by the praise of others and how people praise him and so on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in the heart. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, بِحَسْبِ امْرِئٍ مِّنَ الشَّرِّ أَنْ يَحْقِرَ أَخَاهُ الْمُسْلِمِ. He said it is sufficient evil for a person, shar, that he would belittle a Muslim, his brother, his Muslim brother. That means he is already full of sin if he belittle a Muslim, and that's not an easy matter. And that's the ihtiqar, or belittling, is mentioned again, because when you belittle someone, that means all kinds of evil can come as a result of that. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, كُلُّ الْمُسْلِمِ عَنْ مُسْلِمِ حَرَامٍ. All the Muslim on the Muslim is haram, his blood, his wealth, and his ird, his honor and dignity. That means it's not permissible to transgress this limit by physically harm him, by harm him with one's speech. That's rulings that has to be taught, and also with the ird, with his honor and dignity, backbiting, slandering, and we should not be at ease with this whatsoever, as it will come in the Day of Judgment, and the person will, people would be treated in the most just way by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these are the rights of the human beings. The hadith, as we heard, we can never fulfill its rights. It has so many details, has so many different rulings that we need to learn. But it's important to know that these things are haram, and then the person would learn the different aspects of it, and each one is a separate subject by itself, and to learn it, and see how that when we do not apply these types of things, and how harmful it gets among the Muslims, and people become parties and groups, and they hate each other, and they turn away from each other, and they take the means. That's why when the ulama, for example, forbidding tahazzub, and to be in parties and in groups, and loyalty to groups, and even to loyalty to a masjid, or to a person, or to whatever there is, it causes the split that the Muslims they have, where it becomes brings all these types of hatred and ignorance, and each person would think that he's upon what is right and others are not. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. It's a subject that needs a lot of attention, of course, and also maybe we can, and we should, inshallah ta'ala, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us life, seek more knowledge in regards to this matter. Because of the time, I took too much of your time. Inshallah, we'll continue, and we'll have it as a separate subject, inshallah ta'ala, at some other time. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum.